things are what they are. Orange is an orange. A home is a home. Falling rain is the rain that falls. Nationalizacja is nationalization and not polonization. It's something slightly different. Let me finish by just recalling that the power of the region was built on important values like freedom, equality, solidarity, and I believe that the country should keep going on this path because only in this way we can face the challenge and reduce disequality. And let me finish by just underlining one important thing. We cannot measure everything with product krajowe brutto. This is an important aspect. And I would like to recall what Robert Kennedy said in 1968. GDP, product krajowe brutto, can measure everything in short, except that which makes our life worthwhile. I wish you a nice evening, a very inspiring and pleasant meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luigi Lovaglio. Thank you for this speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, really soon we'll be having here on this stage a keynote debate. And as you might have noticed, is a new thing during EFNI. It will be historically the very first opening keynote debate. But before we begin it, we'll have something to eat first. The waiters will give us starters and a soup. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, we will be having something for our souls. Alexander Dębicz, a very talented piano player who plays in a variety of styles, winner of many Polish and international awards. In a moment, the piano player, but I received no signal that many people is standing at the back of this room. So now I want to welcome all of you inside to the room. Please come closer, because there are still places. And now in front of us, Alexander Dębicz.
Europejskie Forum Nowych Idei.
European Forum for New Ideas 2015. Applause, applause. That's what we need. That's what we truly need. Thank you. Thank you for the first person to applaud. That was part of our script, so what a lucky coincidence. Before we begin our keynote debate, let me double check with you if you have already downloaded our app. Say yes if you have. And if there is anyone who hasn't done it yet, please make sure that you'll do it promptly. Download our app that you can use on the smartphones and tablets likewise. And it's worth it, because with this application, you're able to cast your votes during sessions. You may comment on the events as they unfold, and you may ask questions. You may check our program, and you may also check who's taking part in the forum. So again, this is another tool that helps carry out networking, which is a great feature of the Sopot event. We are very much interested in your feedback and the opinion about the forum. Therefore, we shall have questionnaires to assess the event, each session. The scale is from 1 to 5, and the 5 is the top grade. And I assure you that it will take you 2 or 3 seconds to run this assessment, so it's not going to take much of your time. And we want to encourage you to provide your feedback, because this is part of our survey that is made together with Millward Brown, Poland. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin our keynote debate. This is the very first time that we have the debate on the opening evening. Europe in the face of growing social inequalities, radicalism, and geopolitical threats. This debate will be moderated by Piotr Kraśko. I hope that Piotr will join me on stage promptly. Piotr is the journalist and the TV newscaster in the Polish television. Let me introduce our panelists. Salvatore Babones, Professor of Sociology at the University of Sydney. Dr. Henryka Bochniarz, President Polish Confederation Lewiatan and Vice President Business Europe. Leszek Jerzy, Editor-in-Chief, Libertan. Mr. Rainer Münz, Advisor, the European Political Strategy Center. And Mr. Oliver Roy, Professor, European University Institute. And Magdalena Środa, philosopher and professor of ethics at the Warsaw University. Please take your seats on the stage. Piotr, over to you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to see Dorota on stage. She was my first boss when I was working for the news service in the Polish television. An applause for Dorota. I think that she's good. She's doing a great job here. So I believe that this is a true honor to be here, and I would like to follow up on Mr. Buzek's intervention. May I have a request, please? Well, it's time for silence. We won't be serving the main course or dessert without this debate. And no wine. Please do not serve wine, especially those who talk. And now we need silence. Thank you.
Świetny wstęp.
That was an excellent
Chciałem tylko
introduction.
krótko odnieść się do
to
słów
the
pana
debate.
premiera Jerzego
But
Buzka,
let me
który
make
mówił o
a
niebezpiecznej
follow-up on
sytuacji
the
zewnętrznej.
intervention of
Kiedy popatrzę na sytuację
Professor Buzek,
zewnętrzną
who
wokół
spoke
EFNI,
about the
popatrzę
external
w lewo,
developments and the
popatrzę w
threats
prawo,
that
to
emerged
całkowicie
there.
zgadzam
When
się
I
z
look
prezydentem
right and when I
Karnowskim, że
look
nie może być lepiej
left,
niż w
I
Sopocie na
believe
EFNI.
that
Naprawdę wspaniałe miejsce.
the
Na
mayor of
początek jest
Sopot,
idealne.
Mr. Karnowski, was right. You can't have a better place. Sopot is an excellent venue for
Zobaczyłem
our forum.
niezwykłe dane dzisiaj rano, bo przez
This
najbliższe
morning,
2
I
dni, czyli
took a
tyle,
note
ile
of
będzie trwało
amazing
EFNI,
data.
ludzkość
For just 2
wytworzy
days,
więcej informacji
humanity
niż
will
przez
produce
20
more
000
information
lat.
than
Do roku
for
2005, kiedy
20,000
nastąpiła
years
eksplozja internetu.
prior to 2005 when the internet exploded. In the upcoming weekend edition of New York Times, there will be more information than an average predecessor of ours in 18th century was able to absorb throughout the lifetime. When we were thinking about this debate a few weeks ago, the world was a different place than it is today. Moreover, the world has changed since this morning. Let me just explain to you what happened when some of our guests were traveling by Pendolino train from Warsaw to Sopot. First, Russians gave pre-warning to Americans not to touch their planes because otherwise they would start bombing. An hour later, they started bombing. The president of Iran claimed in Tehran that they actually won against Obama at the UN summit. Then the president of China told Americans not to interfere with Chinese Sea. Jeffrey Corbyn, the new Labour Party leader in the UK, claimed that he's going to come up with the maximum wage, the maximum level for the wage that is allowable. And then there was a claim from the Spanish car, Spanish temper and German precision. On this day, 10,000 people, refugees, reached the European Union, and all that happened during the first 3 hours when you were riding on the train from Warsaw to Sopot. That's the world that we live in.
Są według Państwa taki mały pomysł, by zadać to samo pytanie wszystkim panelistom, byście
We
Państwo
have
zorientowali się w ich
an
poglądach
idea to
i
actually
poznali
ask the
lepiej ich
same question to all the panelists so
Co
that
według
you can
Państwa w
probe
tej
their
chwili jest największym
views on the
wyzwaniem
world.
dla Europy,
What
największym
is, in your
zagrożeniem
view,
dla
the
Europy?
greatest challenge
Myśleliśmy parę
to
tygodni
Europe and the
temu o
greatest
nierównościach. Myśleliśmy o nierównościach
threat to Europe? A
przede
few weeks
wszystkim
ago, when we
między
spoke about
bogatymi
inequalities,
a biednymi.
what we had in
Ale
mind
może
were
jeszcze
inequalities
bardziej
between the
niebezpieczne są
rich and the
nierówności
poor of this
pomiędzy
world.
nami,
But
żyjącymi w
perhaps
pokoju
the
tu,
greater
a ludźmi,
threat comes
przed których domem
when we
wybuchła
look
wojna,
at the
którzy są tuż obok
inequalities
nas,
between us
a
who enjoy
przywędrowali do
peace
naszych
and
granic, albo
people
wręcz
who
są
had
już w
war at
Europie.
home and they
Jakie jest Państwa
decided to
zdanie, co
migrate
jest
to
największym
Europe,
teraz
or they
wyzwaniem?
stand at the
Proszę, pani
border of
profesor.
Europe. What is
Proszę.
the greatest challenge of today in your opinion?
Szczerze powiedziawszy,
Professor, let's start
słuchając
with
pana,
you.
pomyślałam sobie, być
Well,
może tak
quite
wiele się
frankly,
zdarzyło,
when
ale to
I
jest
listened to
pewnego
you, I
punktu
thought perhaps a
widzenia
lot of things happened
tylko
during that
taka
short
piana.
time. But
taka piana.
this is
Te wydarzenia,
in a sense
informacje.
meaningless.
Gdzieś
All the
tam
news,
jest coś trwałego. Ja może zacznę od
it's
tego, dlaczego tu
something
jestem,
that is
tak mi się wydaje.
transient. It doesn't stay.
Ponieważ
So,
należę do tej
let me
grupy
explain
zawodowej,
why
która
I am
jest
here.
ofiarą nierówności.
I am a
Nauczyciel
member of
akademicki,
the professional group that
zarabia
fell victim to
bardzo
inequalities. I'm an academic
niedobrze,
teacher.
zarówno w
Academic
porównaniu z
teachers are
kolegami na
severely
Zachodzie, jak i
underpaid compared to
porównaniu
the
z naszym potencjałem
peers
gospodarczym.
and
Ale
colleagues in the
zarazem
Western world and
to
compared
jest
to
chyba
the
ten drugi ważniejszy
economic
powód.
capacity of this
Zgodnie
country.
z diagnozą
But,
społeczną profesora Czaplińskiego
According to the social diagnosis by
jesteśmy
Professor
najbardziej
Czapliński,
szczęśliwą grupą
we
zawodową.
are the most
A mają
fortunate and the
Państwo przed
happiest
sobą
professional group.
przedstawiciela
So
najbardziej szczęśliwej grupy zawodowej. Wniosek
right
jest
now
taki,
you're
że
looking
można
at the
mało
representative
zarabiać,
of the happiest
być ofiarą
professional group in Poland.
nierówności,
So you may
a
be severely
jednocześnie
underpaid, you may be
szczęśliwym
a
człowiekiem.
victim to
Ja myślę,
inequalities
że są takie trzy
and
sprawy.
still be a happy
Pierwsza,
person.
ja bym je charakteryzowała
I
nie w
would see
kategoriach
three things
kryzys
here.
i zagrożeń.
First, I wouldn't
Państwo
really look at the
pamiętają, kilka
crisis or
lat temu,
threats.
jeszcze chyba
A
w
few
zeszłym
years
roku,
ago, even
na
last
tej
year,
samej sali
you may
trochę dalej
remember that
rozmawialiśmy o potwornych
in the same
zagrożeniach
room we were speaking
kryzysu.
about a
Był taki strach,
horrendous
ten kryzys
threat of
przyjdzie,
crisis. We were
że wszystko
concerned
ulegnie
that the
zniszczeniu.
crisis will
Nic
creep
takiego
in and
naprawdę
will destroy
się nie
everything.
stało. Ja myślę,
Has
że
never happened.
nie musimy przesadzać z tymi
I
zagrożeniami.
think that we should not
Europa
really
żyje,
exaggerate the threats.
w obliczu pewnych
Europe
napięć. Ja bym
is facing
wyróżniła
some
takie
tensions,
trzy elementy. Jeden
and I
to
would
jest jedno
identify
napięcie,
three tensions here.
to jest między społeczeństwem
One is the
zamkniętym a
tension between the
społeczeństwem
closed-up
otwartym.
society
Pisał o
and an
tym
open society.
Henryk
Henryk
Bergson
Bergson was writing about it. The societies close up or open up. And that's what you need to keep the place in balance. We have tension between cosmopolitan mindset and tribal mindset. And this is a serious threat in these days. But again, we need some balance here, because cosmopolitan mindset could be way too open. And we have a tension between the national state and transnational or cross-border community. And this is what we should really discuss. We have to refer to tensions that we need to accommodate and overcome. But remember what Aristotle said, everything should be in balance. So this is the first thing that we have to address. Another area that we are going to cover at great length is economy at large. So the tension between the tools that we have and the objectives that we want to reach. The economy is a tool that should bring us well-being and a happy life. But now the tool becomes the means in itself. Let me quote Havel, who wrote Introduction to a Greater book by a Slovak philosopher Sedlacek, The Economy of Good and Evil. He said that we are dependent on the growth of growth. So we have a growth dependence. And I believe that this dependence is like a truly bad drug. We talked about it today. We need ethics, we need values, we need self-restraint. And let me quote Pope Francis, who met with the entrepreneurs and said, we need to make the economy more humane, and we have to reach the balance between solidarity and productivity. We need progress, which is measured not only by the measure of GDP, and we need prosperity, which is not measured by consumption. Growth and development is also self-development. And another thing which probably should come as a concern, or perhaps something that we should be joyful about. Here in Europe, we came up with the idea of the human dignity. We have the claim of equality. And we have came up with the universal idea of human rights. And obviously, there is a room for a lot of tension here. Remember the Declaration of Human Rights, the French Declaration, the first one, the first 3 articles. You have humankind and mankind and the man, and then in the further section you read about the citizen. So to become a man, a part of the mankind, you need to be the citizen. I think that we should really enlarge this particular term and category. So citizen should include humanity or mankind and all the rights that are attributed to a man. So if we came up and created this culture, we may not say no to other cultures, because that would not make our culture universal, and we want to make it universal. So we have to be reasonable with our policies, and we have to come up with a good public education, good civic education, international, transnational, European.
Bardzo proszę, absolutnie.
Well, Professor has drafted this discussion. I'm afraid we'll get to the conclusions. Reinel Mintz, who is one of the best experts.
We are facing right now, because at least as far as we know, the war in Syria lasts 4 years. So why right now? Why right now thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are coming to Europe?
We don't know why just now. It could have already have happened 12 months ago. What we cannot choose is the geopolitical situation. We are living in a neighborhood. We have a neighborhood where things go wrong. We know that. There's a problem in Syria. There's a problem in Iraq. There is a failed state in Libya. We are trying to withdraw from Afghanistan, and while leaving, we see the regime there collapsing. And people understand that maybe there is no future where they are. And this is why people are coming to Europe increasingly. And we do not have the means to seal our borders off the same way as the United States have been doing this with Mexico. And let's not forget, the US, during the Obama regime, has invested 100 billion euros into border control. This is about a one-year budget of the European Union or the size of the GDP of Romania, just to give you a perspective. And despite this, we still have about 13 million irregular migrants from Latin America and Mexico living in the US. Compared to Greece or compared to Spain or Italy, the US-Mexican border is the so-called easy border. You can just fence it off. How would you fence off 42,000 kilometers of sea borders that the Schengen area is having? I don't see that. So we do not yet have found a balance what to do, and at the same time, it's a threat to our liberal societies. Why? Liberal societies mean that we respect, as you've just said, human rights, that we uphold the right for people to ask for asylum if under threat, though they first have to come to us. Yeah? We don't grant asylum in a refugee camp in Jordan or in Lebanon or in Turkey. So you first have to get to European Union soil. And at the same time, there is a considerable opposition within our societies to what is going on. So just think of the Front National becoming a leading party in France, and we would have a Prime Minister, Marine Le Pen, or President Marine Le Pen in France, what this would mean to European integration, just to give you an idea. So I think our liberal values are under threat because there is more people asking, and many of them with a legitimate right to ask for asylum, than we were ever willing and able to accommodate. And we have not found an answer, and I don't see an answer around the corner easily coming up, not even within the next 2 days or the next 2 years.
Bardzo dziękuję. Pani profesor Magdalena Środa powiedziała ciekawą rzecz dla mnie.
Professor Magdalena Środa has said something interesting. When I listed the events of the day, she told that it's just talking. And I believe that it requires a lot of wisdom from everybody here to distinguish between the information buzz and what's really important. But to me, the world now, and now I mean it, I believe that today we see that that the future of Europe may be decided, that after some time of peace or illusion of peace maybe, now we are facing dramatic changes, and our discussions about inequality, about refugees are for real. And now my question to Leszek Jażdżewski. Christine Lagarde, the head of the International Monetary Fund, she was telling about the pace of the top financial people. So do you believe it's just a challenge for intellectuals, or are we now facing breakthrough in our history? When some days ago, Robert Lewandowski shot 5 goals, and then he was so successful in the next game, he made 5 goals in only 8 minutes. So you welcomed me so warmly today when I was closing EFNI a year ago. Now I have this feeling that nothing changed during this year. In the beginning of EFNI, I would like to thank President, who now left the stage, for giving me this opportunity. I feel like Robert Lewandowski, who is having the next match, and they told me do the same, but in 3 minutes this time. Thank you, EFNI. It's a great opportunity now. Leszek Jażdżewski is initiative taker of Lay School, and he made it. He collected 100,000 signatures under the motion. Thank you. But I did not do it myself. There were many people who got involved. But thank you, Professor, for mentioning it. But now get back to the present issue. Piotr now asked, well, this question about the threats, and this EFNI, to me, should be as solemn in mood as the question Piotr Kraśko asked. The game is over. The game which we used to play during the previous 25, 30 years, now it's over. The game which was about the world, quite unexpectedly after the Cold War was in an era of great prosperity. The gigantic, many countries, big territories, the Soviet Union collapsed, the Eastern Bloc collapsed, Poland was beneficiary to what happened after that. The Chinese from 1970, they entered the era of global capital, global trade, and thousands of million people got out from poverty. And the capital from west was sent to the east, and the goods were sent to the east. And countries like the US, which were a country where everybody owed money to, which is why Bretton Woods war, because only dollar was based on gold, because all the gold after the Second World War was in the US. And this system collapsed in 1970s, and ever since we've been using paper money, and Poland and the world experienced an incredible era when we didn't have to fight any war. We didn't have to fight every piece of the cake. We didn't have to fight for it because this cake was growing all the time. And this world now is getting to its end. As Professor Marek Góra said, the creator of the modern pension system in Poland, Santa Claus is dead. Or as Philip Kogan said, who wrote Paper Money, the bounce scheme is out of suckers. Well, translating it into elegant language is that the financial pyramid has no naive people anymore. The financial pyramids, meaning the systems, the pension systems, the health systems, which based on it, that will be growing in number all the time, that the economic growth may stay with us, may be sustainable, that today's debt will be paid by tomorrow's children, that the debt of people who are 50 plus and they think where they would be spending their vacation, on which islands, that it will be paid for people who are entering the labor market now. No, this won't happen. It's not that we will not be paying back our debts. The financial crunch from 2007, which hit Europe and which resulted in bankruptcy of Greece almost and some other countries, it's the transfer of over-risky private sector to bank. The bank transferred it to the states, and the weak states transferred it to strong states, which are capable to pay it back. The question is whether strong economies will be wanting to pay back it for others. It's not a question whether we won't be paying back, but it's about which debts we will not pay back. We won't be paying back towards countries like China or Saudi Arabia, which today have massive financial reserves. Or we won't be paying back to the banks, which were saved for our taxpayers' money. Or maybe we will not be paying pensions, not to our grandchildren, not for people 70 plus, but to you, people who are sitting here. So the generation of 20-something, will they be paying the pension for 50 plus people? My information to you is no, they will not be capable to do so, because the forecasted debt of the US, of the UK, of France is like 150%. In light of the analysis, the invisible debts are over 400% of our GDP in the European Union. The debts are impossible to be paid back. And now my final statement. After this brutal diagnosis, we need to choose the debts which we won't be paying back. Because demography is as it is, and the energy sources which fueled development We need to decide which debt we will not be paying back and how we won't be doing it. It will be a very brutal process, believe me. If we look at what happened in Greece, when you owe money to a state, you depend on the state. Greece and the countries which have the gigantic debts, which are in the hands of richer countries or the financial sector, they lost their sovereignty de facto. The question is, can we here in this panel, you in this room, can you imagine a world without debt? A world where some countries agree that from today we are zero, and we promise that we won't be indebting ourselves because we cannot be paying it back because we don't have enough people, enough coal, enough gas. Someone will lose on it. The question is who it will be. Alternative is a system where our part of the world, Europe, will become meaningless. The rules will be decided by those who will be keeping us, like Asia, China. This is the choice we are facing now. And I really wish this EFNI to discuss how to dig out from this hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Leszek Jerzy. And I have something that really fits what he said. The game is over. That's what he said. The game that we've known until today. And I think that it really tells you everything. This book has been treated as the most important book in the economy, as important as the Bible or Adam Smith's book. The question is whether this book makes sense today. Let me remind you of two main concepts. First, that the market will regulate everything by itself. And the second thing, which is key to this debate, is that individual egoism will contribute to the public good. So if you want to get rich, everyone around you will also get rich. My question goes to Professor Salvatore Babons.
It's not the first one, right? And do you think we'll get to the business as usual, or we are really on the verge of something really new? On the verge of a new world in the economy and in politics?
First, let me say that I do not share the pessimism of my fellow panelists. Europe is a prosperous community of 500 million people who live in comfort and peace. Poland is a well-governed country with strong macroeconomic indicators, and by all accounts, sound macroeconomic policy. I am concerned about global growth in the rest of the world, among the 6 billion people in the world who don't live like us. And I'm particularly concerned about China. You can go to Shanghai and spend an entire week on a sunny day with no clouds and never see the sun because of the apocalyptic environmental degradation throughout China. China has a collapsing birth rate. Its birth rate is lower than any country in Europe, and China has no immigration. Poland has a low birth rate, but Poland has many young, energetic Ukrainians who want to live in Poland. Poland has a diaspora who will come back whenever there are jobs available in Poland. China does not have these advantages. In Poland, you worry about Russia and about security. Well, China also borders Russia and Japan and has disputes with Vietnam and disputes with the Philippines, disputes with India. Poland worries about its unstable neighborhood, the possibility of increasing civil war in Ukraine or refugees from Syria. Well, China's neighbors include Myanmar, North Korea, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan. China's neighborhood policy is much more challenging than Europe's neighborhood policy. China has domestic terrorism, Uyghur separatism in Xinjiang province in the northwest, Tibetan separatism in the Southwest. And of course, now we have slowing growth in China, a financial crisis, and my own research is on the coming fiscal crisis in China. For 15 years, we have been used to China being the rich country, the endless bank that could spend money on anything it wanted. But very soon, the Chinese government is going into deficit. Its current account balance has already turned negative. China is going to face a major fiscal crisis in the next 5 years. And if China doesn't grow, Southeast Asia doesn't grow, Central Asia doesn't grow, South America doesn't grow, Brazil doesn't export soybeans, the economy slows all around the world. Chinese investment is keeping Africa afloat, but as China goes into deficit, its investments in Africa will be dramatically scaled back. The problem we face in the world today are not the minor problems of Europe. Europe can survive those problems. The problem is the challenge to keep China growing and keep China a successful, participating member of the world community and the world economy. I dare say that the future of growth in Europe depends much more on demand from China and from Chinese consumers than it depends on any domestic policy you can pass in Europe. I don't have an easy solution to this problem, but I do encourage all of you to be thinking about growth in China and keeping China prosperous as the main challenge for Europe, not to constantly look in at your own problems, but to look out and understand the rest of the world's problems. Thank you.
Tylko powiem, że jeśli myślą Państwo, że poziom
Let me just say that if you think that the level of optimism depends on your distance to Europe, well, Professor Babons is teaching in Australia. But I think that he was right on target. Chinese need less energy because of the economic slowdown. They buy less coal, therefore Polish coal mines are getting into trouble. So it's not that we can actually lock ourselves in our lucky, happy world and say that we don't care about the problems of the world. That was a very good comment. My question goes to Madam President. Perhaps we are becoming too philosophical. Perhaps we want to change something that is not malleable to change. Perhaps capitalism was based on the human psychology. Perhaps we are not able to remove inequalities between the rich and the poor. Perhaps this is the inherent part of the system. Or is there anything that we can do? Well, first of all, I have to agree with you, Professor, that we should be more optimistic when we look at what may happen in Europe or globally, and even in China. I'm also optimistic because I remember that at one of our fora we were discussing what happens when Chinese will take over the world. They will rule the world. They will control everything because they grow at such a fast rate. As it turned out, they have their own constraints. Now we are concerned about the growth constraints because of the environment and social problems, etc., etc. But to me, this is just an evidence which shows that perhaps we should not be so preoccupied with the sort of short-term assessments, but things that happen in the world happen at a much faster rate. But most of the projections or predictions take Fukuyama and the end of history. Well, at the end of the world, at the end of the day, it turns out that it was just one of many predictions. And we have to find our spot. That's why we make this forum, to have opportunity to discuss the developments in China, in Russia, to actually be less parochial. And after this 26 years now, we started thinking that the world is our oyster, that the world is within our reach. And when I look at the Polish businesses that want to reach out to Brazilian and African markets, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lewiatan. This is a Polish company which is based in the tiny town. Two brothers, some 20 years ago, decided to build a company that would build trailers for heavy-duty trucks. It seems that this is not a European product, but they decided to go public. And now they really are the main player in the industry. So they decided to make some acquisitions. So they made an acquisition in Italy. Now they made an acquisition in France. They took over the company that is 100 years old. And now they become number 3 in Europe. So they are one of the top players. And they come from the very tiny place in Poland. And there are many such examples. So we should look at all the trends that unfold globally. But at the same time, I think that this is our duty. We are the first generation of people who were able to grab the market economy, who are able to set their foot in Europe. We want to be part of that. When we were entering the European Union, everyone had such great expectations, and everyone was looking at Poland, that Poland will actually bring in new ideas, but Europe has been worn and torn, but Europe lacks creativity, and eventually when we were the largest newcomer to the European Union, the largest economy, we were supposed to contribute new ideas. And to be quite honest, what really hurts me and what is painful, and I see the Chinese problems and the Russian problems and refugees, but what really hurts when I look at it is that I cannot understand this country, my own country. I don't get it. I read all the statistics, and all the statistics show very clearly that we are completely out of sync with Europe because we have the growth, we have the Green Island, etc., etc. We never had recession over the past few years, etc. But when you look at things that are most debated today, like Professor Piketty will probably get a Nobel Prize for the book that no one is able to finish, so everyone thinks that it is so smart. So, speaking of inequalities, we are the country that gives that proves otherwise. We have a very wild capitalism, but as a result, we were able to reduce inequalities. That the lowest income groups gained most. And this is not just a social diagnosis by Professor Czapiński, but if you look at IMF or the World Bank data, it is all very clear. I don't know how we've done it. I don't know, but it just happened that this country made a huge leapfrog where everyone has an opportunity. Some people are able to take advantage of it, others are not so much motivated. But Professor Środa complained that she's one of the excluded club. But I think that there could be a lot could be done to make her included. I was saying that I am a happy one. Okay, she's happy, but she's excluded. But then when you look at the outcomes of the presidential elections, and then you read about those who are excluded, rejected, and frustrated, I'm thinking, where do we live? Something is missing here. Well, we are not able to get it. Emma was asking me why people are like that, why things are bad. I think that people got bored. 8 years of stability, enough. Now we will do like Italians do. Every 6 months, the new government. We have cookies. This rising star. So we have still a huge distance that we need to catch up with the Italians, with the French. And now we have the Polish people. When we were beginning the transformation, we looked at Czechoslovakia at that time and Hungary. It was dreamland. This was something that we were aspiring to. I remember that when I traveled to Budapest, I said, wow, they've got great restaurants and it's so cool. Who would like to compare themselves with Czechs or Hungarians today? Who would make comparisons between Poland or Slovak Republic? No. We look at Germany as benchmark. Why we don't have the same wages as Germans have? Why we don't have the same life standard as the French enjoy? So something is wrong. Perhaps something is wrong with us. Perhaps as the business community, we are not able to communicate what happened to people. But we speak to people in our companies. And the surveys show that all. The studies show that people trust their bosses most. Most people work in the private sector companies, in the small and medium-sized companies, and they are happy. And suddenly it turns out that we are a huge nation of frustrated people who feel excluded, rejected, unhappy, and miserable. So I would like to have a wise man to explain it to me, because I just don't get it. When I look at you people, you work hard the day long, and as a result of your efforts, Poland is considered to be a huge success in Europe and globally. So how come that we have such a problem to absorb this success, to grab it? Perhaps the only thing that we can do is to lose. Now Lewandowski, our offense footballist, scored 5 goals in the German league. That's fine, but otherwise we have a problem to say we can do it, we made it. And when Leszek Jażdżewski is sharing those horror stories with us, so my question is really, who's going to pay our retirement pension? Refugees. Refugees will. Okay, so let's embrace Belarusian, Ukrainians, Eritreans, and whoever else. We will have people who would work here and they will pay for our retirement pension. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why EFNI is organized by Henryka Bochniarz, and EFNI is here to talk about this thing. One thing was really interesting from this Czapieski forecast. In 1990, 70% of Poles had problems with paying their payments. And in 2000, 40%. In 2014, 12%. But this jump we made is incredible. And over half of Poles is happy with life, and in Poland, social inequalities, differently than in the world, in the other countries, are getting smaller. So it's difficult to understand the first round of presidential election. That's right. If I may, about this diagnosis, it's important what Nika has said. In diagnosis, there was this thing that each Pole individually is very happy. Why? Because Poland is in ruins, and I'm happy. Maybe that's why the politicians, they want to take care to build up this image of Poland as a country in ruin, so that I individually can say that I'm happy. But we have another important speaker. We have Oliver Roy with us, one of the outstanding experts of Islam.
Used to live with the huge Muslim community for decades. And for a lot of our countrymen, it looks like a dangerous prospect. What's your idea? What's your vision? What should we do in Poland to be ready for a change that may be inevitable, that maybe not now, maybe not in 5 years, but in 10 years, when we will be richer, we will be the final destinations for refugees from all over the world, not just a transit to Germany or to Sweden?
First, we have to see where the refugees want to go first. Now, the preferred destinations is Germany and Great Britain. You know, they just cross the other countries. They are not so interested to stay, including in France, by the way. But the issue for me is not so much, closing the borders, because we cannot close the border, it's clear. It's the closing of the mind. We know what we are fighting against. We know what we are afraid of, but we don't know what we are fighting for, and it's a big problem. I hear people speaking about the European identity, about the Christian identity of Europe, but what does it mean? Is Europe a secular place or a Christian place? And we use both terms as if they were, you could use one for the other. The problem is Europe is secularized. So what is the issue for us? Is it Islam because it's a different religion? Is it religion as such? Is Europe becoming anti-religious? And sometimes, especially in France, it's clear that, yes, the French laicity is more and more anti-religious. So we are getting rid of a part of our heritage, of our legacy, in the name of fighting Islam. And it's a big problem. As you know, the Catholic Church is more and more criticizing the secular turn of Europe in terms of values about same-sex marriage, for instance, individual freedom, and so and so. So Europe is secular, more than Christian. But still, we speak about Christian identity of Europe. And when the Pope reminds the Europeans that Christianity is not just an identity. Christianity is a faith and a set of values, And when he say we should stick to our values, so we should welcome the refugees because it's part of our values, then you have a big silence, especially among many bishops. We cannot say, we cannot speak against the Pope in terms of Christian values, but still we think that, well, hospitality towards refugees may be a Christian value, but it may undermine the Christian identity of Europe. And the reason is, I would say, the bishops are European, so they are afraid, as most of the Europeans, while the Pope is not a European, so he's optimistic and open-minded, So the problem here is this clothing of the European mind. And last point, we see the refugees are being part of a Muslim community. No, it's not a community. There is no such a thing as a Muslim community. They are fleeing civil wars, wars between Muslims. It's not the Muslim world which is now penetrating Europe. In France, we have a huge population of Muslim origin. We don't have a Muslim community. They don't have political parties. They don't have representation. They don't have religious schools. They are a collection of individuals. And in this sense, they are very French, They are individualistic. So the issue is not, European community versus a Muslim community. We don't have a European community because we don't know what we are. And the Muslims are as divided and, I would say, as ignorant of what they are. They don't know. So we have a huge crisis of identities on both sides. And I think that in 10 years, yes, the societies are changing in Europe. We have the crisis of the demographic crisis. It's a fact. We are an aging continent, Europe. And so, yes, there will be changes, demographic changing among the population. But many of the immigrants and who are coming are attracted by what they see as European values. Freedom.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you. Right, so we are getting closer to kind of a summary of our debate. Professor, maybe your final contribution to the discussion. Were you listening to the debate about migrants and refugees in the Polish Parliament? I'm afraid it told a lot about our fears, Polish fears. What kind of image can we get from what we talk about the external world and the migrants, how we perceive Poland? Is it an optimistic image? Well, I hope that our parliamentary debate was not representative to what Poles believe. This hope helps me to live in this country. But I think when I'm following the reason of what's going on, well, the first reason, funny one, is election. It's election time in Poland. Some political parties, they simply want to use it, want to use the refugees. They want to use them to put threats. Well, it's as if UFO arrived to Poland. It's, well, this talks about our identity. It's building up on the differences, me and the stranger. You can win some political war with it, but I believe that the real and serious reason And here is the deepest post-communism legacy in it, is that Poland and countries being on this side of the iron, were in a complete isolation, artificial isolation for so many years. When we look at attitudes of people in Germany, the eastern part of Germany, they behave in a xenophobic way. Czech Republic, Visegrad Group. And to me, this is the legacy of communism, the worst possible. And we were kept for so many years in the homogeneous society that we had our borders closed. So now we see the reasons. And please remember, I'm following the books, school books in Poland professionally. And during 12 years of education, we never had lessons on tolerance. There are no lessons in Polish schools where young people would learn about other cultures. I think it's the fact that the education is neglected. We cannot learn at home how to be tolerant. We are not taught how to pay taxes, for example. We know nothing about other cultures, and it's very easy to build up political parties on this hatred. And they are doing it. You will see that the issue of migrants will just disappear from Poland until the 25th of October. I don't want to make analogies because this is the international panel, but it's like Smolensk. Gender issue was before that. You might remember that people and gays were used in this and a long time ago we were frightened by Jews, and the politicians, they abuse these differences. But now we, in this post-communistic country, we are not ready to be open. We are not ready to be protected against the tribal mentality. Leszek Jażdżewski, over to you. I just want to defend my pessimism. There is an island, the biggest island in the world, which used to be Green Island. It's called Greenland. And because for 364 days, well, the fact that someone is feeding turkey, it does not mean that the one who is growing it is a nice person, because this turkey will be killed at the end of the day and eaten. Well, at the end of the day, we may solve all the problems. If you want, I will solve the problem of inequality. I know that it sounds like Monty Python.
I would like to address my fellow panelists. If you'd be so kind as to reach out and put your wallet over here, if you have a wallet. If you have a wallet. I'm serious. I'm not going to steal it. I don't have a wallet, but I have 100 zloty here. So what I propose right now is that we put all the money here, and therefore, please don't be shy. We don't have a wallet. We accept euro as well. We accept euro. Wow. I'm serious.
Mam klucz do pokoju, ja w państwowej firmie pracuję.
Okay.
We are completely dependent on our men, so you have to go to them and get
Okay,
the
I will do it. I will do it at the exit. At the exit. No one leaves this room with the money. So I've got some wallets here and some money, some real money. And now I'm going to distribute it among all the panelists evenly. Right? Remembering how much money do we have before. I'm not sure if they're all comfortable with this, even though some of them just put their keys over here, or cards, you see. Okay, I'm not going to take this money for real, because I only brought 100 zlotys here, so it wouldn't be fair. And I think the Australian dollar is pretty strong recently, so... Singapore dollars, even better. What? The hesitation that you've seen here in this panel to share the wallets, to share the money evenly among all of us, is a cultural thing. It's been here in us for thousands, tens of thousands of years, since the human being as such exists. And very recently, in the last 300 years, or even more recently, in the last 50 years, we have struggled to overcome these cultural differences that we held for a very long time for very good reasons. But we lived in a very small, compartmentalized communities. And this world is no longer here. We can change inequality issue in the world. And there's no such a thing as a good or bad level of inequality or equality. Because in each culture, in Australia, in France, in Germany, in Poland, in US, in Singapore, it's all very different. The only problem we have now is that we cannot keep our own attitudes the way they were 100 years ago, 50 years ago. We have to accommodate to the other. We have to embrace the other. And this is a very difficult thing to do. Accept the immigrants and accept that different people in the different sides of the world have very different attitudes towards inequality, for example. So I've got a positive message to you. There is a way out of this hole we digged. We only have to change the human nature. That's easy. So EFNI, we've got lots of stuff to do tonight and for the next 2 days. So yeah, good luck with that. Thank you.
Bardzo dziękuję. To jeszcze Salvatore Babons. It should be working.
I study inequality for a living. I can assure you, inequality is not a serious problem for society. It reduces life expectancy, but that helps solve the pensions problem. It causes a small amount of crime, a small amount of social problems. These are minor and manageable. Inequality is a problem for business, except for luxury businesses. Businesses are facing the problem that people cannot afford their products. Inequality limits the size of the market. If you think about Germany, in every small town in Germany, there are artisanal audio stores and cheese shops and chocolatiers and cafes and organic markets and all these high-quality local industries. Because Germany has relatively equal wage distribution and a mass market can afford to buy those specialty products. In the United States, where there's very high inequality, we have Walmart. And that's it. And all of your small businesses and medium-sized businesses can't compete. Because in the United States, there's such high inequality that it's Walmart or nothing. I even go so far as to say that high inequality in America caused the global financial crisis. We always hear that the GFC was caused by subprime mortgages. Well, if the United States had the same income distribution in 2007 that it had in 1967, the average American family would have had twice the income that it did have. Instead, there was no income growth for the average American family from the 1970s through the 2000s and today. As a result, they couldn't pay their mortgages and the whole world economy collapsed. Look, inequality is great for CEOs. It increases your pay. You can afford a housekeeper, a gardener. You can eat out more cheaply. You can get a personal tutor for your children. But I want you to ask, is inequality good for your company? I suspect that that is a different answer.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you. Well, I think that the presence of Dorota brings our discussion to the end, but to support your optimism, President, I say that American archaeologists uncovered the old manuscript in Egypt from before 4,000 years ago. It read, "The country is about to collapse. Children don't want to study. No one is respecting the elders and the priests. System will not sustain it. Everything will collapse." Well, Egypt survived for another 1,500 years. We will survive too, and Poland is becoming a better place to live. Let's just make an effort to notice that. Well, thank you for this great debate. It was just the beginning of EFNI, and it was so great. We had Professor Środa, Olivier Roy, Leszek Jerzy, Salvatore Babons, and Henryka Bochniarz, and Piotr Kraśko. And myself, I really wanted to thank our hungry audience for persevering. Now you deserve the main course. But I want the panelists to remain on stage for a while. Let's applaud them. Let's applaud the panelists and the moderator. I think that the level of this discussion, I think that the temperature of this discussion is a good sign for what we may expect in days to come. And I believe that many things that were mentioned here will be further debated in other debates and plenary sessions. We've got a robust group of the European politicians that was now enlarged with Mr. Maroš Šefčovič joining us. And the strong representation of the European politicians and the representatives of the European Union also casts favorable light to our discussions. I think that the official session and official part of this gala evening is coming to the end. And as Henryka Bochniarz said, very shortly we are going to be continuing our dinner. But let me remind you that at 10:30 p.m. we have the Night Owls discussion. These are informal discussions. And we just hope that the whole idea of having the late night meetings will not interfere with the morning meetings, because 8 a.m. we have the morning debates, round tables, and the Forum of European Publicists. And here at this place we meet at 10 a.m. At the plenary session, the end of the post-Cold War illusions. Is Europe in need of the new governance? We will have the main course served promptly, but prior to that we will hear Alexander Dębicz playing the piano. Now it's time for the family photo for all our panelists.
If you could step in front here. A Państwa bardzo proszę o gromkie brawa. Debata tytułowa Europejskiego Forum Nowych Idei 2015 za nami. Prosimy nie uciekać. Family photo. Now it's time for family photo. To jest oczywiście także okazja dla Państwa.
This is also an opportunity for you, ladies and gentlemen. You may actually take pictures. You may actually post them. You may tweet them. Just hashtag EFNI 2015. So you may tweet them, or you may show it on your Facebook, and selfie is also welcome. So again, thank you so much for this opening keynote debate. And again, the round of applause for our panelists and for Alexander Dębicz, who will play for us right now. Thank you.